Ladies and gentlemen, today we have some absolutely nuclear bombshell news that could, frankly, fundamentally change the way in which our entire nation operates, and no, I'm not joking. You see, President Trump and the Senate Republicans are about to make one of the single biggest political plays of all time, and so folks, I think you're going to like today's video. But now, before we can really get into things, I need to give all of you some background information. You see, in order to successfully accomplish anything in the US Senate, you need anywhere from 51 votes all the way up to 67 votes. Some things require 51, some things require 60, and some things require 67. It really depends on what exactly you're trying to accomplish. However, if you want to bypass some of these larger vote requirements, if you have a humble 51 votes, you can activate what's called the nuclear option, which allows you to permanently change the rules of the Senate and reduce the number of votes needed to accomplish whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. Now, for the first 224 years of our nation's history, this nuclear option was never used, and the reason why is because, like I said, what it does is permanently change the rules of the Senate going forward. So simply put, the concern was that if one party uses the nuclear option because it would be beneficial to them in the moment, there wouldn't be anything stopping the opposition party from making use of these new rules should they ever get back into power. But all of that went out the window when Barack Obama and the Senate Democrats decided to go nuclear in 2013 for the first time in our nation's entire history. You see, in 2013, the Democrats decided to go nuclear for the first time ever in order to change the rules of the Senate so that Obama could confirm all of his nominees while only having 51 votes in the Senate as opposed to the traditional 60 votes that had been needed. And so, folks, this is what brings us to today's massive nuclear bombshell as it relates to the Senate Republicans. For months now, the Senate Democrats, led by Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, have been roadblocking and shutting down almost every single one of President Trump's nominations. In fact, 8 months into his second term, President Trump has actually had the fewest number of nominations confirmed by the Senate in all of United States history. And why? Because Chuck Schumer and the Democrats have been doing every single thing that they can to try to hold the nation hostage and undermine the democratic will of the American people. But hang on, wait a minute here. If the Democrats already used the nuclear option in 2013 to drop the votes needed to confirm a nominee from 60 down to 51, then what's the problem? Right now, there are currently 53 Republicans in the Senate, so what exactly is stopping President Trump from just pushing through all of his confirmations? Well, as it would turn out, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has effectively been abusing a series of procedural rules in order to delay and stall out the confirmations of President Trump's nominees. As a couple examples, there's a rule that says that Chuck Schumer can force up to 2 hours of debate for every single one of President Trump's nominees. There's a rule that allows him to force a roll call or to take attendance in between every single confirmation as well. And there's a rule that allows Chuck Schumer to push for regular midday break sessions, which in some cases can actually restart a nominee's entire confirmation process. And so, folks, like I said, Chuck Schumer has been doing every single thing he can to try to hold the nation hostage and undermine the democratic will of the American people. In fact, I hate to say this, but Chuck Schumer's strategy has actually proven to be so effective that right now, President Trump, 8 months into his term, is still missing over 100 of his nominees. So to be very clear, everything that President Trump has accomplished so far, he's actually done understaffed and undermanned, all thanks to Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this is why the Senate Republicans, led by Senate Majority Leader John Thune, are planning on going nuclear any minute now in order to permanently shut down all of Chuck Schumer's anti-American antics. You see, what they can do is modify the rules of the Senate such that all of Chuck Schumer's time-wasting tactics are no longer the law of the land, so that President Trump can go ahead and fast-track the confirmations of all of his nominees. Now, folks, I want you all to take a look at what Republican Senator Mark Wayne Mullen actually had to say about all of this just earlier this morning, but first, I do want to say real quick that if you guys enjoy the daily news updates, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a lot. But okay, check this out.
we're able to pin it on Schumer and say, no, because you have filibustered every single one of President Trump's nominees, which is unheard of. It has never been taken place. It's never happened in the history of the United States. You have forced us to make this change. So it gives President Trump all month to make the case to the American people that Chuck Schumer took the nuclear option, and now we're going to make the rule change to make the Senate work more efficient, which is honestly the best outcome. I would make the argument because we're doing the rule change, we can fix this for the long term.
Well, hold on. But so two things. What will the rule change be? And if I'm drawing on memory of some of our other conversations, doesn't the rule change require 60 votes or 67 or some goofy number?
Yeah, so it technically used to require 67. Chuck Schumer changed it when he was in office, and Mitch McConnell actually made a speech in 2017 and said, because you did this, you have forever changed the norms of the Senate. And so Mitch McConnell was the one that warned Schumer for making the change. He did make the change, and now it put us in this situation. So now we can do 51.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. As Senator Mullen just said, Chuck Schumer and the Democrats were the first ones in our nation's entire history to ever actually use the nuclear option, and since then, they've actually changed the rules of the Senate on multiple other occasions. And oh yeah, by the way, over the last couple of years, we've also heard from various senior-ranking Democrats, Democrat aides, and left-wing pundits that if the Democrats ever regain control of the Senate, they're planning on abusing the nuclear option as much as they need to in order to continue to push their radically progressive agenda. So folks, I'll go ahead and tell you my opinion here. Personally, I'm with President Trump and the Senate Republicans on this one. We all voted for President Trump to enact his America First agenda, and so far, Chuck Schumer and the Senate Democrats have been undermining that mandate every single step of the way. So you know what? Let's go nuclear. Let's confirm all of President Trump's nominees, and let's actually get the ball rolling here. Now, I have seen some people say, no, we can't use the nuclear option because it will set a terrible precedent, and hey, what if the Democrats use the nuclear option against us at some point in the future? Folks, they were the first ones to use it, they set the precedent, and they've gone on the record and said that if they ever regain control of the Senate, they plan on going nuclear on a daily basis. So with that being said, here's my idea. Let's give President Trump what he needs to actually get the job done, and let's just make sure that the Democrats never retake control of the Senate. The reality is, if we want to actually make this country great again, we need to start wielding political power in an effective and productive way whenever we have it, because we all know that the Democrats are not afraid of trying to get away with as much as they possibly can. Because hey, as I like to say, that is what it's going to take to finally start putting America first.